and let's go. All right, so today's meeting is about onboardings. So onboarding in Red Jade language is how you add new subjects to your subject database, right? So what that does is that's going to allow us to bring in new subjects as well as collect information about those individual subjects that we can then use to pre-screen individuals for an actual test, right? And that onboarding questionnaire can take a number of different shapes and sizes depending on if you're one of our CPG client companies, if you're one of the universities that uses Red Jade, if you are a testing agency, right? So that can really mean different things to different people. But what I'm going to talk about is how you broadly use onboarding to bring in new people to your database. And again, remember, what we're trying to do here with an onboarding is collect information about individuals that can then be used to pre-screen them prior to applying a stricter set of guidelines to screen individuals into a test. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you a couple of things here. One is the support channel for onboarding. So to get to the support channel for onboarding, you're going to click the question mark. You're going to visit the Red Jade support site, and you're going to scroll down. On the right-hand side, you're going to see onboarding procedures under recruiting. Okay, so there's a number of different documents that you can look at here. There's also a longer video that's about 35 minutes under training videos and examples called Recruiting Overview and Training. Plus, we're going to have our next webinar will show up right here, that webinar from today. So that'll be webinar number 9 that will show up down here. And again, each video is about 15 to 20 minutes. So let's start by taking a look at one of our subjects so we can see how this information is stored. So let's just click here on Annette Adkins. Right? And when we click on Annette Adkins, we get some additional information. And if I click on categories, categories are going to be the individual demographics that are stored on Annette within Red Jade, right? So you can see that Annette's ice cream flavor most often is strawberry. She drinks regular soda. She's not a she, she's male. We have iOS for our tablet operating system, so on and so forth. You guys can read the screen, right? But we store that information about the individual at the subject level. Okay, so I'm going to click on this little home to move back. So in this onboarding process, there's really a few different steps that you need to take to create your onboarding. The first step that you need to do is think about what categories would be most useful for my company to be able to apply as pre-screening filters for my tests, right? So let's just take an example. Let's say you're an ice cream company, right? So one of the things that you might want to do is, does the person have kids, right? Because maybe you'll do novelty tests and maybe you'll do regular ice cream tests. What flavors of ice cream do they eat regularly? What flavors of ice cream do they eat most often? How often do they eat ice cream, right? Things that you can use to pre-screen individuals easily for a specific test, right? So let's go ahead and look at what that looks like. So I'm going to jump down. By default, when you jump into recruiting in Red Jade, you go straight to subjects. I'm going to click on categories. So categories is what we call the broad overall demographic for each person. So this is a category. So gender is the category, male and female are the individual demographics that make up that gender category, right? And you can see I have a number of categories here, right? I do a lot of demonstrations, so I've added a lot of categories to my database over time. And you can also see that we put the percent of people in the database who make up each demographic, right? So here, for example, we have Android makes up 31% of my database, iOS 30% of my database, and Windows 29% of my database, right? You can also see that this is an exclusive category, which means that somebody must be Android or iOS or Windows. They can't be Android and iOS or iOS and Windows. Okay? And we have 2,209 people's worth of data for the phone operating system. I can click on this number and it will take me back to my subjects with that filter applied, showing me the 763 subjects who meet that demographic. Okay, so let's go back to our categories here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new category. So I'm going to click this create button and I'm just going to add 2 simple ones. So I'm going to first add sports played, right? And I'm going to make this a non-exclusive category, meaning that I'm going to uncheck the box next to exclusive, and I'm going to add the choices that somebody will be able to make and that I will store in my database here, right? So let's do golf, baseball, basketball, jogging / running, football. Okay, we'll just make them nice and simple. And we click submit. So now I'm going to make an exclusive category. So remember, an exclusive category means I can just pick one. So I'm going to go ahead and click the create button. I'm going to leave exclusive checked. And I'm going to say sport most often. And again, we'll type in the same ones, right? So we'll do golf, baseball, basketball, running, jogging, and football. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and click submit. So I've now created these 2 categories, right? They're brand new. If I type in sport and click enter, it'll search through my categories. It's going to show those 2 categories, and it'll show that I have 0 people in my database. Sports played, not exclusive. Sport most often, exclusive. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down to my settings here, right? So I'm going to click on settings, and I'm going to show you a couple different settings that you can choose to turn on for your database or not. So one is consent agreement, right? So we have a number of people, there's a number of people on this call and a number of RedJade licensees who operate out of the EU or Brazil. And the consent agreement is part of the, and California for that matter, are part of the data protection and privacy laws that are starting to become more prevalent as we move forward, right? And so one of the things that you can do is if you turn on consent, I want to be very clear here, it is applied immediately across your entire database. It is not a per site setting, it is a global setting for your company, right? If you turn on consent, the first time somebody interacts with RedJade, it's going to read the terms of service, right? It's going to read the contact policy, and as well as there is an additional sentence that says we use RedJade for our recruiting. Here's a link to their privacy policy, right? And so that will show up as well. But you can define your own terms of service and your own contact policy. It will also ask the individual if they consent overall and if they consent to phone and or email, right? It is a positive consent, meaning it is all turned off to start. Part of the caveats of GDPR are you have to obtain positive consent for things. You can't assume consent, right? So if you turn that on, note that you are requiring the person to say, yes, they will come into RedJade. Yes, they are allowing contact by email and or by phone, okay? The other thing I want to show here is the adult requirements. Adult requirements are how you can set what fields are required when somebody is filling out their subject form, right? So first name, last name are required. Email address is required, and it must be unique. These are RedJade settings. You can add your own requirements. So for example, if we wanted to make date of birth required, we can do that, right? I'm not going to change anything here, but we can do that. So you can do that as well. Same with minor requirements. All right, so that's settings. So now let's go down to our actual onboarding questionnaire. So I'm gonna, again, jump down one more and we'll go to onboarding. I am gonna continue without saving. But let's go ahead and check this out. So the first thing I'm going to do is this is a list of my onboarding procedures for my company, right? So this is my company as a whole. And I'm going to show you the one here that I have been building. This is my test onboarding, and I'm just going to click edit. And I'm going to show you a couple of details here, right? So first, if I scroll down a little, you'll notice that the first thing here is invite only. What invite only means, so it's called exposure, and you have two options, invite only or open. Invite only means that the individual has to have the link to this survey in order to complete this survey, the link to the onboarding in order to complete the survey, right? That is a static URL that can be posted to a Facebook account. You can buy ad space on LinkedIn or Facebook or anywhere, Craigslist, etc. You can put it on your web page, right? And you can build a different onboarding for each location as well. And I'll show you how that works in a second. Open means that when the person hits their portal account, so if the person already exists in RegAid and they hit their portal account, or if they sign up through an invite only and then hit their portal account, they will be asked to complete a second open onboarding, right? You can just leave that onboarding open when someone hits the portal account. You can, if you choose open, you can also couple that with a restrict to location so that it will only ask subjects who exist at a particular location. If you do not restrict to a location, then everyone in your database will hit that open onboarding if they hit the portal. Chris, am I explaining that all correctly?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So invite only, you can also do this assign on completion. Assign on completion means that the person will become a member of that part of your database, so that location in your database, when they complete the onboarding step. So what I mean by that is I have 3 sites. I have Chicago, San Francisco, and the Pangborn 2017 workshop. And what happens here is I have them so that when they complete this onboarding, they will automatically join my San Francisco site, right? Now, if you have more than one location, I would strongly suggest that you do have an onboarding for each location. Those onboardings can be the exact same. You can copy another onboarding, but you restrict it to a particular location. So one of our clients, for example, has 5 locations, and they have a link to sign up for taste testing. And when they click that link, it actually asks them what city they want to sign up for. They click on the city, and they take the corresponding onboarding questionnaire for that specific city. Okay. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit Questionnaire. And this will take me into my screener here. And so my onboarding screener. And so my onboarding screener, again, is just about bringing new people into my database, right? So you'll see I have a number of demographic assignments that correspond to those categories that I built previously. And those demographic assignments are automatically stored here. So for example, for household income greater than 150,000, the demographic is household income. The choice is 150,000 plus. The question is, which of the following best describes your income? Is exactly 150,000 plus. Now, that would be a lot of clicks to build that. The nice thing is RegAid has a feature that allows you to build this automatically. So I'm just going to scroll down to the end of my questionnaire, and I'm going to add the 2 categories that I just built. Right, so I'm going to click on the last question in my questionnaire. I'm going to scroll up to my basic library. I'm going to click on basic questions, and I'm going to click the plus button next to demographic question, right? And you'll see it says, please select a demographic category. Now this is going in, when you're in onboarding, this is going to show a list of all of the categories that you created in that first step that I showed you, right? Now, this behaves a bit differently. That demographic question button does exist also when you're building a recruiting screener for a specific test. It only shows quotas that you have set. So there'll be a far fewer choices when you're within a recruiting screener. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom. It was the last thing I added, and I'm going to click on sports played, right? And so here I have all of my sports. Now you'll also notice on the right-hand side, it automatically added all of my demographic assignments for me. So because I use that demographic question type in my basic question library, it automatically maps all of my choices. So if somebody clicks football, they're going to be classified as playing football, right? You also notice these are rounded squares, which means that this question is a multiple selection question, which corresponds to what I chose for sports played, which was a non-exclusive category, right? We can change our question here. Which of the following sports do you play regularly? Okay. Now we can go ahead and again, I'm going to scroll to the top. I'm going to add another demographic question. I'm going to click in my open box. I'm going to scroll to the bottom. I'm going to add sports most often. And I'm going to say which of the following sports do you play most often? We'll clean it up a little bit. Play / participate in most often. Right now, you'll notice again, if I scroll down on the right, you'll see that now sport most often changes. I have round instead of squared. And you'll see that now instead of saying includes any of these, it now says is exactly this. So this is how my exclusive category is going to fit. Okay. So when the person clicks on the link, they'll fill out this entire questionnaire. They will fill out the information about themselves. That information will be stored and that new subject will automatically be created here. All right, so that onboarding questionnaire is then used within a campaign. So this is an actual recruiting campaign for a specific test. If I scroll down to custom filters, I am able to apply what's called a demographic filter to my specific recruiting campaign and filter my database down, which has 2,327 people. I'm able to filter that down. And for example, here, I'm including only those individuals who said that they have vanilla ice cream as their flavor most often. You'll see there's 1,088 people in my database who meet that criteria. I'm also including people only from my San Francisco location because I don't want to recruit people from Chicago to come to my San Francisco test. I have 1,167 people in my database who meet that criteria. Between these two, so I need them to be vanilla ice cream flavor most often and at my San Francisco site. And so I have a total of 539, or 23% of my database, that meets this broad general criteria to recruit from. Now, if I were to go through and finish this entire recruiting process, what would happen is RedJade would only send email blasts or put on the call loop those 539 individuals that would exist for this specific campaign. It will not recruit from the other 1,800 some odd people who exist in your database. Okay. So again, when you think about these category filters, that's how you would do that. So someone had a question, is there any web reference you would recommend to get standard demographic and category questions? Not really, and here's why. These questions are really company specific, right? And they're really designed to understand what works best for your database, right? And if you are a CPG company, further what HR will allow you to ask, right? Or what you're willing to be asked to be forgiven for. So I don't think that there's any real standard questions. I mean, you can look up like US Census questions if you're looking for age, although you can ask date of birth and we calculate an age for you based on date of birth. But you can ask ethnicity, things like that with how the US Census asks it are good. There's also like some marketing research websites that you can look to. But as far as asking about your specific product, so in my example, an ice cream manufacturer, Those aren't going to be standard questions. They're going to be questions that you're going to come up with to understand your database so that you can use your database more effectively, right? The other question, how to create the screening questionnaire. You know, I'm happy to show you at a different date. It's not, if you watch this video in the support channel, if you watch this recruiting overview and training, that walks through creating a screener, but I can show you really quickly here. Feel free, anybody, we're gonna get into a slightly different topic here. If you have any questions on this, feel free to ask, but I'll go ahead and show you how this is connected, right? So in order to build this, here, let's show you how this works. So what I'm doing is I'm just popping into my project, right? And so what I'll show you here is I've set up this on-site test at my San Francisco site, and I'm going to use assisted check-in, right? Now you could set that up differently, but I click this bottom box on the location step, which says, yes, I'll be using RegAid to recruit. You can use RegAid to recruit for an on-site test or an online packing slip or online email test. So 3 out of the 6 different test types in RegAid, you can use RegAid to recruit, right? We'll go ahead and schedule. If you're doing this on site, you have to create session times. So if I go here and I select a room, and let's just block this off maybe for the next, maybe till 2 this afternoon, I create session times here. And what my session times do is my session times allow the individual to choose from the available session times that I have going, right? So my first session's at 7:30. I click add, my second session is now at 8:15, and I can keep copying those sessions, right? So the person will be able to choose from any of those available starting times here. The seats controls the number of individuals that can recruit themselves for any one session. RegAid will not allow more than 10 people in any of these sessions. You can change those numbers if you want to. When you click add, it just copies the last session you did, and you click submit. Then what happens if we go to recruiting, right? And we'll go ahead and do my first original recruit. I was building this out a couple different ways. But basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna walk through your details step here, right? Which is what I just showed with my custom filters. Then you're gonna set up quotas, and the quotas control who can be recruited for a specific test, right? And so I have, for example, 130 people here, and I am creating quotas that I can then use to recruit people, right? So for example, I have ice cream brand most often. And so I'm looking for Blue Bunny, Breyers, Dryers, and store brand users. And you can see I have these minimums and maximums for each category, right? And so RegAid will limit the number of people that I can recruit to those maximums, but it also operates on minimums. So for example, RegAid is not going to let me recruit 70 Dryers people, because if I recruited 70 Dryers people, I can't meet the minimums for Blue Bunny, Breyers, and store brand. That total is 145, right? RegAid's gonna stop me at 55 Dryers users, because that is the only way that I can get to 25 each of Blue Bunny, Breyers, and store brand. Okay, so it operates on mins and maxes. I created a nested quota of ice cream usage, which was frequency of heavy, light, and medium users. And so I have these broken out among the brands. So that's what's called a nested quota. See how it grows out of ice cream brand most often. Is there a reporting free? I'll go ahead and answer that in a second. So let's go ahead and go to the screener. I got the question, I will answer it after I'm done with this. So then you would build out your screener. And so I've just built a quick screener here. And from here, right, I might say, what's your availability for testing? We'll just say today real quickly. And here, if we scroll down, you'll see that I have a termination scenario for availability. If they say no, they're going to be terminated. They don't get to continue with recruiting, right? I've also added my 2 questions for, now this is the world's simplest screener, ignore that part. But these screeners, which brand of ice cream do you consume most often? And you'll see that I have my mapping over here, right? For store brand, Breyers, Blue Bunny, and Dryers. I also added an other, If the person clicks other, they will be terminated. I created a termination scenario called brand here. If they choose other, they will be terminated. I also added a frequency question because are you a heavy, medium, or light vanilla ice cream user doesn't make a lot of sense to consumers. So what we've done here is one, we have created a, sorry, I have so much open. We've created a, we don't want that. We've created a less than once every 6 months termination scenario here. We have also classified light people as people who have ice cream monthly every 2 to 3 months or every 6 months. We have classified medium users as those who have ice cream weekly or every 2 to 3 weeks. And we've classified heavy users as those who have ice cream daily or every 2 to 3 days, right? So I built out this screener. And then the last step, and again, remember that's the world's simplest screener, is we get our summary and then we can schedule email blasts that go out to people, right? So I can create an email blast and I can say, for example, I want to send an email blast to 100 people and I want to send it, what's today, the 14th, and I want to send it today. So this will go out as soon as I'm done. I think it goes out every 5 minutes. It'll go out in 5 minutes. It has the qualifying URL. That person clicks the qualifying URL and they walk through. If they qualify, they're able to choose a session time. Now I'm going to show you the call loop real quickly so you can see what that looks like. I went ahead and clicked start recruiting. I'm going to click on, I just sent 100 emails. Oh, well, I'm just going to click on candidates and possible subjects. Don't worry, all mine are go to myself. All the emails go to me. And if I go ahead and click on my candidates list here, and let's see, what did I do here? I'm not sure what I did. Sorry, I'm operating too quickly. But on the possible subjects, I would be able to pull them through a call loop, okay? And then you would interview them, it would go out, and then you get to choose from one of those available sessions, okay? Like I said, I think I just clicked something wrong while I was doing it quickly, but you get the idea. The summary shows who's recruited for which of the sessions, how many people you have recruited, etc. here. Okay. I know that was a quick way to go through this, but I just wanted to at least give you an idea. And like I said, I'm sure that I just clicked something wrong while I was rolling through this as quickly as humanly possible here. Anybody have any questions on that or on the onboarding section of what I showed? I'll go ahead and mute and unmute everybody. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out. Oh, there we go. Okay, so if I just click on a possible subject, there, I did click something incorrectly. You'll see I have consent turned on, so that person does have to consent first. And then they'd walk through the screener. Now, again, on an email, they wouldn't have this information on the side. They wouldn't have the reject button. Let's say they're available for testing. They have Blue Bunny most often, and they have ice cream every 2 to 3 days. And now they would get to pick what session they want to attend, right? And again, these past sessions wouldn't show either. This is just because I'm doing it as though I'm the call loop, not as though it's an email blast. They would click on one of the sessions, they click submit, and then you can, of course, within your recruit, you can, of course, set up session reminders, confirmation emails, etc., that automatically go out. Okay, is there a reporting feature to get the frequency counts for categories? So let me show that quickly. In the category section, right, it's going to show all of your categories and the frequency counts for each category. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time. I know we went a little long today, but Tina, thank you for the question. I think that that was good to go ahead and walk through how that's all connected in the end as well. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and unmute everybody. Again, thank you for your time. I'm happy to stay on if anybody has questions. Everybody's now unmuted. Thank you guys again for your time. I'm going to go ahead and sign off if nobody has any questions. I will post this very shortly. I do need to stitch together the 2 videos I made. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Steve.